Hillary Clinton inspired a Democrat witch hunt against Twitter to look for Russian accounts that simply didn't exist and force social media giant into the arms of the FBI. Then we got this one. Adam Schiff lobbied Twitter to ban journalists over QAnon conspiracies. And then we got this one right from Matt Taibbi. Quote, reporters know this is a model that works. That's a cycle. Threatened legislation. Wedded to scare headlines pushed by congressional intel sources, followed by Twitter caving to moderation asks. Basically, the journalists were in on it. So what we have is the government colluding with big tech to shut down anyone who had a dissenting opinion. Welcome to the nightmare dystopia. We make fun of Canada all day and night. Canada's so bad, Trudeau's so bad, Trudeau's so bad. Look what we're living in.
Yeah. When the trucker convoy was going, Biden flew up there to tell Trudeau to do something, and then flew back, and they cracked down on it.
Ian, to correct you, Peter McCullough is losing his medical licenses and credentials. He just lost it by the Texas Medical Board, and he's being threatened, like many doctors and other doctors have been stripped of their licenses for not going along with the larger agenda.
This is the thing, man. It happens in Canada. It can happen here very, very quickly. That's why we got to speak up and get loud about this.
It's happening in California. They just passed a law that doctors can be held accountable for so-called COVID misinformation, which is absolutely insane.
If you have a medical opinion that goes against the government, there you go.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That's all it is.
But yeah, to your point though, I think that like what is happening in Canada, like we can joke about it, we can laugh about it, but it should also be a blaring warning to all of us about what America could become if we are not vigilant. Because this stuff, we're seeing it at a micro level in very blue states. In California, you're seeing the COVID misinformation laws targeting doctors. You're seeing, people being canceled for different opinions through big tech collusion. You have, organizations like PragerU that couldn't advertise on the internet because we were apparently teaching young people that they are not victims and all of these things. It's absolute insanity. And it's like we literally will become exactly what we fear in Canada if we don't open our eyes and actually fight to take back this country in a real way.
What's the COVID misinformation law in California you mentioned?
Yeah, so it's literally if a doctor says something that goes against the current science of the matter. So whatever, Fauci is recommending or whatever, they can be held accountable and they can have their medical licenses revoked and suspended.
Under whose authority?
Under the Medical Board of California that grants them the licensing.
And this is if they just speak out against an established government narrative?
If they provide medical advice that's contrary to that they believe is not helpful or, I guess, fruitful to whatever they're trying to accomplish, then yeah, they can be reported to the Medical Board of California where they can then face penalties and sanctions for the medical advice
if they don't implement, the procedures that the government wants them to implement on everyone else, they lose their license. In Germany, there was just a doctor that was sentenced to 2 years in jail because he was giving out mask exemptions, and allegedly to the state, he was giving out mask exemptions to the wrong people. Because of that, he's literally ending up in jail for 2 years.
It reminds me of what the pharmaceutical industry did. I think it was in the 90s when they started treating pain. It was all about treating pain. And if you don't give them enough opiates to treat their pain, then you're going to lose your medical license. So these doctors were forced to start essentially drugging, poisoning, and addicting people to opioids. Yeah. And Dr. Drew was talking about this on the episode when he was on IRL. It was fascinating. And it completely, it didn't annihilate the medical industry, but he said doctors were in fear to practice because they thought if they did what they thought was the right thing, they'd lose their license. This pharma industry is just too tentacled in right now, and I'm not sure.
It's disgusting. Like, truly and truthfully, if you can't trust your physician to do what they believe is right because they are fearful of what the implications may be on their ability to even practice medicine, then where can you truly get good advice about anything anymore, right? You can't get it on Twitter. You're getting banned from there if you spread so-called COVID. Well, maybe not now with Elon Musk at the helm, but before that was the case. If you dare to suggest an alternate theory about how you should treat COVID-19 or how you should address it, you were banned, you were censored, and all of these things. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Or even talking about early treatment, which we should have been talking about, which many mainline professionals are saying, hey, if there was early treatment, we could have saved and prevented a lot of excess deaths. We could have prevented so much misery. But the main consensus was like, shut up, you're sick, who cares? Come to the hospital if you turn blue. Yeah, that's an insane proposal.
Yeah. Not even that. I mean, when I got COVID, I called the hospital and they said, good luck. That's it.
Yeah. And
then I was like, okay, I guess. And then I got really, really bad. And so I did this. I did what any smart, intelligent person would do. I called Joe Rogan. And that's half true. When the hospital was basically like, stay home, do nothing, I was like, okay. And then I ignored it. And then I started getting sicker and sicker. And then I knew Joe had talked about the treatment he did, so I hit him up. And then, he was like, get a private doctor and talk to them about options Don't just like you can't rely on these public hospitals are like, we're overwhelmed, we don't care, stay home, you're young, don't worry about it. And yeah, it's funny how that was like the gag. Like Joe Rogan became this health expert.
Yeah,
that was funny.
Well, he platformed a bunch of health experts. I don't think he would ever call himself a health expert.
No, I mean that somewhat facetiously.
Osmosisly,
like, the media was arguing he wasn't. He wasn't saying he was.
Mm-hmm.
He made that comment about young people not needing vaccines or whatever, and then the media went nuts against him. And then he was like, "Look, I'm a podcast comedian. Like, go talk to a doctor, man. Don't talk
I trust him on nutrition. That's for sure. He's definitely. I don't know. I wouldn't consider him a nutritionist, but do you guys know medically regarding like someone like Peter McCullough who has strip his Texas state license? Can he like go to Florida and get a license in Florida and out of practice? But then he would have to move or something.
Probably.
So like you could offer doctors sanctuary in a state.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, well, different states, I would assume, have different like medical licensing standards. And so if you're stripped in one state, maybe there could be a protection offered.
I'm sure if he goes to Florida, they'd reinstate, they'd grant him a license, especially considering Florida's position on most things.
I'm more and more bullish that DeSantis has got to stay in Florida as governor. It's
I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like if he can bring that leadership to the rest of the country, we'd be in a better position.
Do you think he can through the White House?
Yeah.
I'm open to it.
He's not the legislature. Here's the thing. In Florida, you've got Republican legislature, right? I'm pretty sure, Luke. It's Republican-controlled legislature.
Yeah,
I believe so,
both
yes.
chambers, yeah.
So it's easy for DeSantis to get things done when he's got support in Florida's House of Reps or whatever and Senate.
It wasn't always like that, though.
Right, and that won't be the case in the United States. If DeSantis becomes president with a gridlocked Congress, then he's not going to get things done.
He'll just be sitting there saying no to stuff.
But you still have a lot of power, and at least we won't have Dr. Fauci at the helm calling the shots.
What if DeSantis is the guy who crosses the Rubicon? You think?
Terrifying.
Not Trump.
What would be the Rubicon?
Is it terrifying? Yeah,
because that was a military coup.
I understand, but then you see 200 years. Was it like 200 years of prosperity in the Roman Empire?
That's debatable. You got to define prosperity. A lot of people. The standard of living plummeted after.
Did it
well,
really?
no, I don't know, to be honest.
We had talked about it before, and someone mentioned that it actually improved a little bit.
I know the emperors were getting assassinated back and forth for a long time, and leadership kept changing hands. And
CJ, what do you think? There's a big debate. Trump or DeSantis? Where do you stand?
I think at the end of the day, DeSantis' record is incredibly strong, right? And I think to your point, when you talk about the way that he's maneuvered through the legislature, there's been times when they didn't want to do a lot of the things that he's been doing. When you look at him redrawing those maps for congressional representation, there are a lot of people in the legislature who are like, no, DeSantis, we don't want you to do that. And he was like, no, I'm going to do it. And you guys are going to pass it. And he did it. And I think that when you talk about these really important culture wars that are in front of us about how do we actually protect our children from grooming? How do we, actually tackle things like inflation and just get our country back on the right moral course? We need someone who knows how to actually use their power, which I think is one of the most preeminent criticisms of previous administrations, is that we have all chambers of government, but we don't know how to actually use the power when we have it, right? Why did we not defund Planned Parenthood when we controlled all chambers of government? That never happened. And I think there's no excuse for something like that.
Well, it's because they don't actually want to.
Yeah.
I mean, like you can't trust them.
Yeah, we didn't get term limits. How long did it take to repeal Obamacare if we ever really ended up doing that in its entirety? Like, that's the thing.
Who was it? We had someone on the show and they said that it was one of the Freedom Caucus guys, that he was the last vote to repeal Obamacare, and they came to him and said, no, don't do it. We need it. Yeah. We need it to campaign.
It's insane.
Yep.
It's insane.
That's what McCarthy's team was saying earlier today. They were like, basically saying of Matt Gaetz, he wins by losing.
Yeah. When
the Democrats win, he can then campaign against Democrats, say they're the problem. He can blame the establishment. There's always a path. And that's a manipulation for sure. Yeah. Like people like Matt Gaetz are elected because he is fighting. That's the game they play.
Exactly.
I was plugging my computer in while you guys were talking about controlled opposition. Before you talk about Gaetz, who was the controlled opposition?
All of them.
Florida?
All politicians are controlled opposition. But you were going off on a little tangent there,
was a piece of
describing what was kind of going on in Florida, which I think was interesting. Another thing that I would add is that also one thing that really kind of safeguarded DeSantis is that he denied any Zuckerbucks for reinforcing the elections down in Florida, because Facebook invested hundreds of millions of dollars on helping people vote, predominantly helping the Democrats vote. And Florida and DeSantis said, no, we're not going to take your money. And I think because of that, that was one reason out of many reasons why the DeSantis had such a major victory down there in Florida as well. So it's interesting seeing this larger fight. Again, there's a lot of also shady people surrounding themselves near DeSantis because they kind of see him as this kind of new hope. For me, be critical of everyone, but I think the record stands for itself. I mean, he's very much against the woke. He's very much against the lockdowns, the mandates, the vaccines, and he's actually investigating it, which is going to be very fascinating to see the results of these investigations when it comes to myocarditis, when it comes to people getting ill, getting sick, and being injured by this. We're finally soon going to find out what the correlation actually is, because his state is one of the few states in the union that's going to be tracking the data, which I think is extremely brave, extremely important, and something that we need desperately more than ever.
Yeah, and let me make myself clear too. I love President Trump and I love Governor Ron DeSantis, and whatever happens will happen. But I think what we truly do need are people who, number one, are willing to fight, unlike what we have seen from these establishment shills who have just shown a reluctance to actually speak truth to power at times, and people who are not afraid to take on the system and use the mandate that they have to actually govern in a real way. We can't go back to the days of this passive conservatism, because that's not the battle we're in today. We have people literally trying to change the genders of toddlers. We have, this rampant indoctrination happening in our campuses all across the country. We are in a battle for the heart and soul of America. We're not going to win that battle by being nice anymore. And I think that this nice guy era of politics, it's unfortunate that it's come to an end, but you cannot look at the news each and every day and say that it hasn't.
I think the key economic is how to win politics is win economically, because if you control the market, you control everything. They all need money, all these politicians.
But I'll tell you a story. When I was 18 and I was broke as broke can be, I had one pair of pants, and the crotch explodes, right? You skate in a pair of stretch jeans, eventually the crotch explodes. So what did I do? I got some duct tape, and then I just duct taped both the outside and the inside, and then I pressed it with an iron, and then, hey, it's a patch, start skating in them. Ripped the leg, I fell, and I put duct tape on both sides every time there was a hole. And then one day, I'm with some family, and there's some buyer for a big, department store chain. And then she's like, those pants are amazing. Did you make that? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, wow, that design's brilliant. And I was like, it's not a design. I just have holes in my pants, so I duct tape them shut. Mm-hmm. There is something about that. I don't know. My point is just it's not all about having the money. It's about the culture. And the culture can be developed by people who don't have money. Mm-hmm. And if you can influence people, you eventually will make the money. Like if those pants did end up selling, you'd make a bunch of money off garbage pants. Mm-hmm. They sell those hats where the brims are already frayed on it. Like so funny. It's just, they sell pants that have fake underwear sewed in. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of it's fake. It's not about so much, but I don't disagree.
Well, I amend my statement. It's about the goods and the services, and some of those are necessities. I don't think those should be for profit. I think, but a lot of the cosmetic stuff people want, that's cultural. Like you can create people to want certain things, and then so in that sense, it is the culture dictating what commodities people want in the market and what then they're willing to spend on.
It's the ESG. Essentially, it's a lot of the bigger financial backers, the BlackRocks of the financial institutions, saying, no, this is where the money is going to be invested in. This is where the money is going to be put in. This is the ideas that we're going to promote. You promote any other ideas, we're going to take away our funding. We're going to put money where we want it to be funded. And that, of course, is destroying the family unit, degeneracy, nonsense, bullcrap, and the larger divide and conquer agenda that is screwing over society and destroying humanity from the inside.
Yeah, Vivek Ramaswamy, I'll bring it up again on the show a few weeks ago. I don't know if you saw the episode or not, but he's an economist. Essentially, I don't know if he considers himself an economist, if he's technically one, but he's talking about the indexes and how BlackRock controls the indexes. They take your 401k if you just give it to your company, and then they invest it in whatever they want. And if it's impact investment for climate change, whatever, they're doing that. So he's created a new index, a type of index where people can send their 401ks local or send your investment and retirement plans local to some company. It's not BlackRock.
Yeah.
I believe Florida and West Virginia also made very similar moves themselves as well.
West Virginia, I think, did it first with banning that stuff, banning the ESG.
I think it was West Virginia first, yeah.
Yep. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.